Alrighty, well, hello everybody. Hopefully this is streaming on all of the many different platforms that these days we have to be on. There probably is about a 10 to 20-second delay on some of the different platforms, so if you do comment, I will see it. It might just be a little bit to get into it. So, without too much ado, let's talk about why we're here today. A lot of people have been pretty excited to hear that there's something in the space around licensing and helping partners get AppSource extensions monetized better. So let's talk about what I've brought to play today. We successfully got our first two applications in AppSource on Monday, a little faster than expected, honestly, or we would have been building up some excitement around it. And there are two products. One is a free product, which we're going to talk about first. So if folks need to jump off, you can jump off at the middle point. That's fine. And the reason that we created the licensing product is our paid product, the Data Braider service, which has to do with API handling. So hopefully folks will find some value in both. So let's talk to first of all, what is the licensing app and why should you care? The PowerPoint being a goofball and not going to the next slide. Awesome stuff. Good times. So anyways, the core concept of the licensing product is that it facilitates communication with a licensing API, and it allows you to easily gatekeep functionality within your Business Central system. This is very much a version 1.0 release, so there's, I expect, probably bugs lying in wait for us, and also lots of things people are going to want for features. Makes all the sense in the world. So the way that we built it for ourselves to start with is that we built it as an extensible way to reach out to the licensing platform of our choice, which is Gumroad. So out of the box, it assumes that you are going to do monetization with Gumroad. I think this is a really good thing for a lot of the smaller partners who haven't taken on monetization as of yet. So let's talk a little bit real quick as to why did we use Gumroad. Real quick, it does all the billing for you. It's really easy for customers to get invoices out of it. You can set different rates per month, different annual billing. You can say it is a monthly charge and have them billed for the whole year at once. You can create special discount codes for, I don't know, I've never seen a Black Friday sale on an app, but you could. There's a whole stripe of really useful things in the middle here that are around. And here I'm going to double check to make sure. Am I good? Okay. Making sure I'm still streaming the screen. PowerPoint threw me off my groove. The middle tax stripe is real important. If you're in the EU and you're doing digital services, you have to do a lot of VAT reporting. And, you know, there's a lot of digital tax changes all the time. Gumroad does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. For example, we have the book of the Getting Started with Business Central. All of the sales of that book, Gumroad handled for us automatically the VAT. It made it a major challenge go off to the wayside for us. And then additionally, Gumroad has lots of cool APIs and automations and marketing, so you can like hook your contact list and who bought what into MailChimp or whatever systems that you need. And also the fees are pretty solid. It starts, I believe, at 9% of the transaction, and it goes down based on your lifetime spending, and it goes down quickly, down to maybe as low as about 3%, so it was very worth doing. And the last but not least on that one is that it supported a really important thing for me working with partners, which is their affiliate program. You can have partners sign up to be an affiliate of your software, and when a customer buys the license key for the product through that partner, they will automatically get disbursements from Gumroad for their portion based on the percentage I, as the publisher, the creator on Gumroad, set on that. So I could have 1 or 100 partners that I'm selling these license keys through, and No problem. They'll disperse that for me. I don't have to care in my internal ERP system, which is Business Central. I don't have to do 100 invoices for different customers. I don't have to do 100 related purchase invoices and disbursements of the different GL accounts and report all the taxing on this. I just think about the net. And for me, that was a huge deal. So hopefully for those of you who are working with this that are smaller like our little company, that'll be useful for you. But the important thing is that we did make this a very extensible framework. So now that the Gumroad part is kind of spoken to, what else is in the licensing world here? We've got the ability for all of the extensions do a daily check-in with the licensing server, because after all, credit cards expire. People maybe don't remember what a charge is for and decide, I'll block it or whatever. Any number of reasons that a license subscription might run out. And so there's some functionality that supports checking in on the licensing around that. And something that was really important to me that I've heard a lot of feedback from partners about is that when you're in AppSource, you really want to be able to give your customer the ability to hit boom, free trial, put this into my system. I want to try it right now. And one of the biggest challenges with that is then how do you handle having that trial mode, a grace period before you have to get an activation key? If you introduce a subscription-based system and you have to register for a trial key, that's an additional hurdle before someone can try your functionality. So one of the things built right into this is you could potentially say, in a production environment or a sandbox environment, I want to have these grace periods so the customer can just start using it right away. And some other things that came up in talking with people in the Business Central Discord server. If you're not part of that, there is one. You'll find it. I'll link it again on my Twitter and whatnot, so you can find it if you want to look it up. Some of the feedback that I got was that you need to make sure that it's really easy for your customer that you possibly have never spoken to once, because it's a global market space. How do they find you to ask for help? Because if there is a mechanism, if there's something in your functionality that isn't working, are they going to reach out to you, or are they going to think that your product isn't good? The easier you make it for someone to find how to get help, the easier it is for them to choose, I will try to resolve this issue and continue to use this product. So it was really important from the feedback I've heard, that you need to make it easy to find support and help. And the other issue that has come up in the AppSource world is that within Business Central, they don't currently push new versions of your extension in AppSource. We kind of muddle the water. App extension. There's no mechanism that pushes your new version currently, except for a new major release. The customer has to know that there is a new version for them to go get. So one of the things that is built right into this from the start is there a mechanism by which you can look for updates? And find out if there's new information. There are some clever ways that I could do that. There are some ways I'm going to work with the community to add more mechanisms for finding that out. But we started with one, and we'll keep it going. And the other important part is it needs to be extensible. It needs to be easy for partners that need to do something a little different. Maybe they need a different payment platform, different licensing key system. However they're going to work with that, it needs to be easy for them to make it their own. So that's the underlying philosophy. Let's dive into actually taking a look at what that looks like, because I think that will be more helpful for folks to actually see what it looks like. So if we go into my demo environment here, where I currently have the licensing installed, as well as the Data Braider product, tongue twister, we can see that I've got a licensing test subscription, and I've got the activated Data Braider product. And we can see, some pretty basic info about it right off the bat. Where is the product located? If I needed to go to the page to maybe I don't remember how to set something up. I need to find the manual easily. Here's a link straight to it. You get to it right away. What's the support email for, or you can go either way. What's the support email or web page that someone should go to file a support case? And separately, maybe you also have a different invoicing or billing department that you want customers who are running into technical issues with their licensing to contact in case of billing. So you could have potentially billing support email as a separate piece of info. Really easy way of handling things. When you sign up for a product on Gumroad, for example, or any number of other places, typically there's some email address that you have the invoices go to, that you're connected to your account or login somewhere. And that's what this subscription email column is. It lets you know within my organization who actually signed up for this and activated it, so that if someone's out on vacation, staff turnover, it's 2 years later down the road, what email address should I be looking for a reset password request for? Additionally, we also see here if they're currently operating in a trial grace period, when does that end up? And if there is any sort of update, let the user know. Not too crazy of a concept. And this is a URL that as a extension developer, you can put this in here. They'll get a direct to go to wherever you want them to go to. In my case, I just had pointed them at a Twitter account. Nothing exciting. But it's very nice and easy, and if anything goes wrong, then no problem. Easy enough to reactivate. The test subscription always gets installed when you install the extension licensing module, so that way you can test it out and show users what it looks like. So if we go into the activation wizard, the product URL will pop up here in case they are unaware that there might be a product license key that they need to have. This will take them directly to that product page, and it will also say, please enter your subscription key. This is the test subscription, so there's one built right in, so you can test the workflow and make sure that communication with the internet is working correctly. So I can go ahead and click use this test key, and it will reach out to Gumroad, and boom, activation successful. So communication right now with the internet is working, which is good, because otherwise I'm talking to myself. So that's the core concept in a nutshell. I'm going to hop into the development environment and show you a little bit of the behind the scenes. This at the moment is not currently in the repo just yet. Here on GitHub, there is a Spare-Brained Ideas account and a repository for the Spare-Brain licensing. I'm going to be getting all of the source code for this brought into this environment today or tomorrow, so that way people are going to be able to contribute to it, to improve it. I plan to continue to have this be free and open source. Just with AppSource being what it is, I can't give everyone my development license to work in the range. So this version of it will be renumbered for people to work with as developers, and to use for whatever they need to. So let's take a quick look at the core concept of this. The main thing that we need to be aware of is this extension registration code unit is your starting point when you're wanting to work with this as a developer. You create, and I'll show you a working example, you create a call against this function from an install code unit that says all of your parameters that matter to you, the product URL, all of your billing info, and separately you can say I want to give them a week in a production environment to be able to try it out before they activate. You can, in the sandbox, say, I'm going to give them 30 days or 60 days. You can even set it to be infinite in the sandbox if you would like. And then the main core of what you do is you hook into this check if active function in your functionality, whether it be a page, a report, anywhere that it makes sense for you to gatekeep paid functionality. And you can do this with a simple choice of whether or not you want to show a user an error message that says, hey, this license isn't activated, or if you don't want to show the error and you just want to handle the yes, no yourself. The nice thing is that this will cross-check against an API server, get the results back from that, and it also stores all of this information into isolated storage and does cross checks against it. So there's some clever trying to minimize potential abuse and whatnot. You can't just update the entry table for this. So there's some clever bits. You'll be able to see lots more about that. The way that we communicate with the license backend is handled via an enum that implements an interface. And sorry for the non-tech folks in the audience, but the enum handles an interface, and we can say that we're going to use the licensing platform of Gumroad, and that will use our Gumroad communicator code unit. So if you want to use another platform like Stripe or your own homebrew application, that's perfectly fine. It's just a matter of extending this application with your own solution and implementing this interface. And these are the core functionality. They're named pretty logical. They even get down to the sample text that in the activation wizard where it says the key format looks like this, you can provide that. So that way maybe your key format looks like a 6-digit code. Okay, no problem. Show the user the right thing that they're going to expect. So there's some great little bits of things that you can hook into. Let's show in the Data Braider product, I have an implementation of this where we have an install code unit. And in my case, I register that this is going to be managed by the licensing functionality. And I have some of this is demo related, but some of it's accurate. So for example, I just noted it all out so that way I could keep track of which one's which. Gumroad has a unique product ID code that doesn't change, so I've provided that. That's pretty common for a lot of platforms. What's the actual URL where they would go as a user to purchase things? Where do they go get support? Who do they email? This little version update parameter, I just did a test GitHub, but effectively all it's looking for is a place it can go to and ask for a version string, something along the lines of this sort of text, and just to compare the version strings and see, is it new? And if there is a new one out there, what page should someone go to for instructions on how to update it, for example? And then we have the ability to do grace days before activation in production and on-prem, because we can't know with on-prem what's a sandbox, what's not a sandbox. And what are the grace days before activation in the sandbox environments when you're on cloud? You can set this to -1 and always just allow sandboxes. You don't care. You're only going to charge for production environments. And if you ever need to change some of these settings, you do an upgrade code unit or whatever have you, you can force an update of those settings. So that way you can make sure that, oh, geez, we've moved the product website, we've updated our email. That's fine. You can get that here. And this is also the place where you can hook into to choose to use different platforms that you've extended onto. So it works pretty great. And then what we've done in our Data Braider product is we made a little interface code unit that, no, not an interface, but a wrapper code unit around the checking if the functionality is active. And that's because we wanted to support a couple of other neat little things that you can choose to do when you have this core functionality all sorted. You can do some pretty nifty stuff. For example, we throw events in the licensing management that activation succeeds or fails. Well, if it succeeds, in my case, I created a demo product key that someone can use, and it will say, hey, you activated this with a demo product key. This will work, but only for a little bit of the data. And there's a nice little way to handle that. And then anytime we're checking active, we can do some checking and say, is this a demo install? If it is, we can just say, is the license key that product key? Nice and simple. And the way we handled that in our configuration page is we do a nice and simple call here in the on open page. Is this a demo install? Nice and easy. So there's the hooks are very, very simple for a starting out partner to make use of. I think that is going to make a pretty big difference for a lot of people. It obviously is going to help a lot more for those of you who are wanting to develop this and work with this to get your hands on this source code. So I will be making that available, as I said, today or tomorrow. I just need to renumber it, or you guys won't be able to develop against it with your licenses. So you can extend it, but you can't make changes. And I look greatly forward to people saying, hey, this is pretty cool. We could have done this better. We could have done this smarter. Almost certainly. The community does a fantastic job, and I envision this as a tool that I hope a lot of folks in the community are going to get value out of. So that's the licensing part of our functionality. There's going to be lots and lots of questions. In this SpareBrain licensing repo, there is a whole discussion section. Please come and have feedback, have questions. I might not have answers to all of them right yet, but there are questions that I know I don't have a good answer on. Like, what sort of additional variations around licensing do you potentially need? Do you need per company, per user? I don't know. So come join in the discussions. Add some stuff to that. We'll get it all developed together. As we make changes and do pull requests in this repo, I will bring those back into the AppSource version and continue to keep that updated. Not a problem at all. So that'll be good. I hope that's going to be of a lot of big help to folks. So I mentioned that we had launched 2 applications. The other one, I'm pretty proud of this one, and this is coming off of the fact that throughout most of the past year, I have spent a lot of time helping Power Automate people, helping Power BI development, creating some really interesting flows, doing web integrations where we needed to have a faster turnaround time on API adjustments. And the problem that a lot of these great Power Automate people and Power BI people were running into is that if they needed something that wasn't in the standard API, they had to ask a developer. And even the fastest, most helpful developer in the world, there's going to be some lag time of how quickly can you get that back to a person. So I created Data Braider as a product so that non-technical people could create and adjust easily a way of pulling information out of Business Central. The challenge is it is read-only at the moment. There is a product I'm working on for next year that'll do a similar sort of adaptive read-in on the writing side, but as you can imagine, there's a lot more trickiness to that. And the other thing about this is that we needed it to be a lot easier to move custom API information not only between environments like a sandbox back into production, but we also really were running into, so you've got your great Power Automate solution that does a hook onto the approval process. Cool. All of the custom API belongs in that customer per tenant extension. You can't take it with you to the next project. This is all configuration based, so you can just do a config package to bring it all out. So let's take a look at what the heck does that look like. I'm not going to go as under the hood with this one because I think that'll bore the heck out of some folks. But if we take a look at the Braider configuration here, and I'll bump my screen up for folks. I created an example one that was a list of customers with the related customer ledger entries, for example. And all I had to do was define that this is a customer entry, which fields do I want to include, and the related customer ledger entries, what fields do I want to include, and how are those 2 tables connected. You'll see here, this is an example of the functionality you could choose to use with the licensing, how you could implement demo versions of copies. So here in my API system, I have the ability to show, hey, this is a demo install. You used the demo product key. I'm not going to give you the full result set. So if we look at the fields on this, we can see that I'm including the customer number and name, and I think that's it. No, we're including a couple other bits and pieces, currency code and email. So you get all of the fields in your list. This includes any customizations because it's just looking at the data. And you'll notice the flow fields are down at the bottom because they're a little performance heavy, so you want to pay attention to them as separate things. But this extension doesn't have a dependency on any other extension. So the minute you add a new solution, say a project management suite, an integration, anything that you add to this, it's available immediately in here because this is just pulling from what's in the system. And then we have in the customer ledger entry table, we're going to grab the posting date, document type, number, currency codes, a few other things. But we can also filter it and say we only want the relevant data to us. This comes up a lot when you're working with web integrations where maybe you only want to present a particular item product group to a web integration team. You can do any sort of filtering in here, and that'll be taken care of. If we do a quick preview JSON on this, we get a nice little visual version of what are we going to get in our result set. And you can see here that, say, customer 20,000 has some open customer ledger entries. So let's take a look here. We get the full amount of detail that we potentially would need to troubleshoot this in any way. We know exactly what table is involved. We know exactly what primary key entry is involved. And for the folks who are working a lot with the base APIs, in case you needed to, say, release a document or block a customer, you might need the system ID for this customer entry. So all of that's included. And we can see the same happens for all of the different children entries. So the ledger entries here, it's entry number this, the ID is this. Here are all of the field names that you asked for exactly as they are named in the system. One of the frustrating parts that I've seen trip people up when they're building Power Automate against the base API. The base API has definitely changed some of the names of the fields. And I don't mean just, dropped spaces and camel cased. No, I mean completely renamed some of the fields. And it's very difficult for people to understand what are they looking at. So we can see that that's how that returns. And that gives us a nice, easy sample data set that we could potentially send off to our integration partner. Just Control A to select the whole thing, drop it in an email, send it to somebody. They can work with it. Done, sorted. Oh, hey, we need this extra field. We also want to have name too. Okay, well, sure. Here, your preview JSON, and name 2 is blank for most customers, but there you go. You can have it. Sure thing. So all of these things take place, and they take place instantly. If we take a look at how this will look in Postman, for those of you who are doing development work and you're used to working in a Postman environment, if we query against this, it's a pretty standard kind of app-based URL. And the only real difference here is that we hit a single endpoint called JSON braids, and we say which code do we want, and we want the cust open API endpoint. And once again, let me zoom that in a little bit for everyone. So we just have to pass this additional little parameter to say which result sets do we want. Now, if you want to have it nice and pretty, what you'll notice is that what you're getting back is a JSON string inside of the field called JSON result. And that's how the magic is happening, because there's nothing that we can do inside of Business Central to dynamically generate the data. But we can dynamically generate a JSON string that can be turned back into a JSON object. I will be definitely documenting exactly how I do all of these steps in the very near future, so don't stress. One of the things that I love to do, for example, is here in Postman, we can teach it exactly, oh, hey, you know what? Do me a favor, parse that JSON result and make it nice and pretty so that it's all cleaned up. Here you go. And there we go. Now we have a pure, clean version of that rehydrated JSON right out of here. So it's one extra step of consumption for an integration partner to use, but it works just fine in Power Flow, and it works just fine in Power BI too. So that's pretty fantastic. If we take a look at a flow document, I'm not going to go through step by step of what each step is exactly doing, but we have to do just one or two more steps to kind of do that rehydration to pull the data out. In this case, I'm using that customer open example to generate an HTML table and send a resulting email, and the result looks like this. Nice and simple. We get our document number, our posting date, and I'll zoom that in here, remaining amount, customer number. This is bare bones formatting using the create HTML table of the flow, but yeah, no problem. You can consume that nice and easy. And if you decide that, hey, you know, in that customer list, right now I'm getting the customer name, number, and currency. I also need the email address of the guy, please. Well, no problem. You would just add that to your parsing here, where you're pulling out the email address. And all you have to do is go back in here and say, hey, in my fields, I need the email address. That's it. It's that easy, and it's instant. So any field that we add here, the second your query hits this endpoint, you get the new fields done and sorted. The same works just fine to build out Power BI. This one I built just a little bit ago, and I parsed out separately the customer entries, and I parsed out the ledger data as two separate tables for easy, nice filtering use. It's not a very pretty dashboard. I didn't build a showroom floor version, but you can see this is all coming from the endpoint. If we take a quick look at the query, this is coming from my data braid. Nice and easy. It goes out and it's getting my data braider, and it's asking for that company, for that endpoint, and nice and easy. We just do some transformative steps, rehydrate that JSON, and away we go. So, the building of these things is super simple. It's a lot like working with config packages. For example, if I wanted to make a new one that is items by vendor item number or some such, we could grab from our item table. Let's grab item table, and I happen to know off the top of my head that 99 is the vendor table of like what is the vendor part number for the different items. So I move right and I say that these are connected how, and I am planning on adding a lot of these as predefined to make life easier for everybody, but version 1. So now those two things are connected, lets you know that they're connected properly. So we can say we want item number and description and our base unit of measure. And then from the item vendor, we want the vendor number and their item number. Boop, preview, and ta-da, we start delving into the item numbers. Most of them in Kronos don't have vendor item numbers, but here we've got 1908-S has a variety of them. So vendor 10,000, it's the same, 20,000, it's the same, but 30,000 calls it blue swivel. Okay. So it's very easy to configure this, and it's very easy to export this. This is all just config package. And when you run preview, it will also give you in the upper right hand how long that's taking to run. I know that one of the biggest challenges that people do run into can be building a good query set can sometimes be really hard. The cloud infrastructure will sometimes cut you off because the data set's too large. So this will let you know if your result set is potentially going to get too big. Performance-wise, I've tested this in a cloud sandbox environment, and it does pretty well up to about 5 to 10,000 records for a data set. So it's not your best choice if you're wanting to build a monstrous cube of all of the item ledger entries. Once you start going over about 5,000 records, you probably should be building query APIs anyways to get the best performance out of things. If you're unfamiliar with how to do that, I always will recommend AJ's API class from kaufman.nl. Definitely recommend that because that'll also answer a lot of questions about how to authenticate when you're querying these different APIs. So that's the general idea of this API tool. The core concepts here are pretty good. I think that covers everything. The questions that I've gotten from folks, how soon can I have it? Well, they're available now. The source code for the licensing will be available shortly in GitHub. The source code is not going to be available for Braider. That is a paid product. What does that cost? It is 140 euros a month because we figured it's pretty easy to spend an hour a month on developing custom APIs, even if you're just adding just one field. So this is a great way to be able to quickly develop those sort of things. And if you want to try these out, if you want to test these out, you can get them in AppSource right now. If we head off to AppSource and we look up our good old-fashioned brained, you'll find you can install the SpareBrain licensing right away to start testing with it, playing with it, developing against it. Go for it. That one's free. And the Braider product is configured to work, I believe, by default in 60 days in sandboxes. So you can just play with that. Unlike my little demo key, there is no limitation to the amount of data you can return in the sandbox trial mode. So absolutely drop this right into your sandbox and start playing with it. There's no limits. You can just go to town with it. And if you do find that this is something that will really help you, great. The license key is right here in the link. No problem. And if you are a partner that wants to sell this to your customer, shoot me an email, jeremy@sparebrain.com, and we'll get you sorted out with the affiliate program, and that'll get you a percentage of the monthly fees for everybody. So I hope that answers a lot of the questions that people might have about particularly the licensing program. I know there's a lot of interest in the community around how this can potentially help you. So I do look forward to participating heavily in the GitHub. If there are other licensing key platforms that will do as much work for you around the billing and subscription process, I would love to get those added in here into the official application so that folks can make use of it. So if you have some great solutions in mind, no worries. We're going to have a great time developing future together for everybody. I think that this will make life a lot easier for some of the smaller developers, and I'm looking greatly forward to working with you all on it. So hope this all helps, and I hope that's been informative. So we'll wrap things up early because I didn't get any questions that I spotted in the chat. So if you do have any questions, I'm super reachable on LinkedIn, Twitter, email, Discord. As I said, I'll relink the Discord. So definitely reach out and I'll help as best I can. So for now, thank you everybody, and I hope you have a good day. And for those of you in the US, I hope you have a nice long weekend.